There's always at least one awards contender movie that I just don't get. Spoiler alert, it's this one. Foxcatcher is the true story of multimillionaire John DuPont and how his love for wrestling led him to work with the Schultz brothers to develop the U.S. wrestling team during the 80s. Steve Carell plays the eccentric and wealthy DuPont, and Mark Ruffalo and Channing Tatum step in as wrestlers Dave and Mark Schultz. The movie especially follows the relationships between these three men and the ominous undertones of mental illness and the dangers of wealth and privilege. So I've already given away that I wasn't as huge a fan of this as many seem to be, but to be honest, I do get why critics are raving. First of all, the story of these men in real life is interesting, surprising, and full of dynamic relationship opportunities. Brothers competing in the same field, a son trying to break from his aging mother, a man trying to buy greatness in a field he's never really excelled in. All of these are themes and character development pieces that make for an intriguing story. But really, any discussion on Foxcatcher has to come down to the three main performances that might just make or break the movie for you. And Carell, Tatum, and Ruffalo throw themselves full force into some very interesting portrayals. Now, I'm not sure if they're as great as many people say, but they certainly are interesting. If I had to pick a favorite here, it's easily Ruffalo. His work as Dave Schultz is complete, engaging, and immersive. You never feel his acting. You just believe he is this person, fully realized and living on screen. But Carell and Tatum, they just aren't. I mean, they aren't awful. I wouldn't call it bad acting by any stretch, and maybe it's just standing next to Ruffalo's great work. You can kind of see more of the seams. But as much as they pour themselves into these parts, and they really do go all out, by the way, I just never bought either of them completely. There was always this twinge of play acting to their performance, meaning that it just never felt completely realized on the screen. Especially Carell, even more than Tatum, who, by the way, does have a couple really remarkable scenes. I just always felt like I was watching Steve Carell with a fake nose, rather than an actual character I could give myself over to. The end result of which threw the pacing of the movie off so much for me that it felt slow and methodical in a way that tiptoed awful close to being boring. I imagine if the acting works for you, it's a completely different experience, but my brain just wouldn't go with it, and so I found myself disinterested. I also think part of this is due to the drawn-out structure of the script, which, if you know the climax of this true story already, may seem more pressing, but if you're unaware, this whole thing feels like a horror movie where you aren't sure what you're actually supposed to be afraid of. I won't give away the end, but by the time this movie gets there, I'm just not sure it's done enough to earn the emotions it wants to pull from you. At the end of the day, Foxcatcher is a swing for the fences extravaganza for acting. Though Mark Ruffalo hits it out of the park and Channing Tatum makes good contact, it just felt like as hard as Steve Carell was swinging, it never quite got there. And yes, I know I should probably use a wrestling metaphor instead of a baseball one, so I'll just say the movie story never quite pinned me down enough to earn anything more than a C+. Thanks for checking out this Your Movie Friend review. You can stay tuned for this review's best ever challenge here in a bit. First, I want to throw some stuff up over here that you can click on if you'd like to subscribe, which I'd very much appreciate. You can do that by clicking on the big gray subscribe button. If you want to see more, well, I've also got a look at another awards contender, The Imitation Game, if you want to check that out. You can also click the logo right up here to go to yourmoviefriend.com, where you can find a searchable database of reviews as well as the written text of these videos. And finally, this review's best ever challenge. This is where you name the best movie ever in a particular category and then also try to identify my choice. What is the best wrestling movie ever? Mine has one of the most honest portrayals of a teenager I've ever seen, and since I know that's probably not a big enough clue to give it away, it also stars the man who would later become a rhinoceros. Drop your own answer and a guess at mine in the comments, and the first person to guess mine does get a point. Thanks, and please subscribe.